Welcome to another episode of No Sides Attached. I'm Fede Pacheco, and this is my teammate Helane Cohen, and we're continuing today our industry series. What do we have for today, Helane?
Yeah, hi Fede. I'm super excited today. We're going to be talking about the innovation that we're seeing with AI in state and local government.
Amazing. And we have an award-winning partner with us. It's Axon. They have the mission to protect life. And how do they do this? Well, they have devices and they have awesome AI-powered applications. Plus, they have amazing people like our guest today. And you can really tell, they aim to revolutionize public safety around the world. So you can totally already see how the collaboration with state and local government is critical for this. But just by seeing, how they're using AI, or how they call it the intelligent revolution, that it's been critical for their mission that they want to protect life.
Yeah, we're super excited to welcome Bryan Wheeler. He's joining us from Seattle, Washington, where our mothership is for Microsoft. And he's the SVP of Product and the GM of the Axon Productivity Suite. Bryan, with that role, I believe you are the perfect leader at Axon to ask you all the questions about the innovation that you've been driving over the past few months.
Well, hopefully I don't disappoint.
I'm sure you won't.
No, we're excited to have you, Bryan. And before we talk SLG, we want to learn how it's been the personal use of AI for you. What is your favorite prompt these days? What have you been using that you really can't start a work day or a personal day without?
Okay, so maybe a little bit of background. It's been many years since I have written software professionally. So no company on the planet should want me to write their software for them today. But in my personal life, roughly this time of year, every year, I kind of do a little personal hackathon project. And I think it's primarily related, in the Seattle area, it gets dark pretty early. In the summer, I'm mountain biking a lot. I'm a lot more indoors these days. So literally last night, I'm working through this project kind of on the side, and ChatGPT was down, and I realized just how dependent I had become. And for me, it's for someone like me that's like has coded but is not currently proficient. It's been a complete game changer in terms of how fast I can kind of iterate and prototype on my own like little side project.
That's awesome. I've heard just today from our internal meetings that like code collaboration is one of the most common use cases. Like that assistant is really powering people that code, whether it's every day or like you maybe not so frequently as you used to.
Yeah, for sure. And look, what I'd say is that particularly for these early ideation things, where because look, a given software developer, doesn't spend necessarily the majority of their time writing code, right? You're thinking, you're reading other people's code, whatever. But in the early stage of kind of a greenfield thing where you're coding 90% of the time, like I literally had to walk away from my keyboard when ChatGPT was down for an hour last night because like I couldn't do it without it.
We're all, I think, starting to become like that with Copilot. Okay, so let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about Axon and your impact that you're having in state and local government. I'm sure that collaboration is huge for your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and maybe a little bit of context for folks who aren't familiar with us. We are a company that impacts state and local governments all over the world, but particularly in the U.S. where we started. And if you've watched any news that's included body-worn camera footage over the last let's call it 5 years, you have undoubtedly seen this little triangle yellow logo in the upper right corner, and that is video from one of our cameras. So.
Great branding.
Yeah, no, for sure. And well, even to the point where my wife and I started watching a show that's been out for several years. It's called The Rookie, and they simulate police body-worn footage in there. It has our logo in it, right? So, sort of suggests sort of the impact that we have. I think in Grand Theft Auto, they actually have a little yellow triangle mimicking our corporate logo in the body-worn camera footage in a video game, right? So. And not to say that like our impact should be measured by pop culture references, but it sort of says something where, we operate in a segment that like your average American isn't thinking about or a lot, hopefully, right? But nevertheless, so we started, 30 years ago with a product that is a household name now called a Taser, and that was driven by our original mission that still animates us today, which is to protect life, right? So anytime a law enforcement officer uses a taser, that is generally in a situation where they're facing something where another option would be to exercise deadly force. And I'm not trying to like make this podcast episode overly serious, but like we're just quite proud of using technology to give our public safety partners different options in these critical moments and options that can actually save lives, right? So that's how the company got started. But today, right, flash forward 30 years, we've got a variety of hardware and software products that sort of impact these people all throughout their day. And so, and this is literally, thousands of law enforcement agencies across the world.
That's amazing. I would also let you take a second to acknowledge the fact that it's taken like 30 years to release the next Grand Theft Auto. That is definitely not Axon's fault.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, look, every company, has to move at a different pace of innovation and releases, but definitely feel your pain there.
Well, now speaking of amazing products, let's talk about it's called DraftOne solution, which is pretty cool. We just published together, Axon and Microsoft, a case study on the impact and particularly how you're injecting AI to this solution and making something that was not even thought about a few years ago. So tell us about that and particularly how you're using AI for it.
Okay, I would love nothing more than to talk about DraftOne. So out of all the products that we've launched at Axon, this is probably one that we've seen the most excited reaction by just our users in the market in general. And the reason is as follows. So when you call 911 and public safety kind of springs into action on your behalf, the people working that incident have basically two mindsets. The first mindset is what I call real time, right? So that's the moment where seconds and milliseconds matter. They're racing to your house. Maybe there's a burglary or a break-in, and all this stuff is happening in real time, and basically that is true all the way up until that scene is safe. Once the scene is safe, and they can sort of breathe a little bit easier, they switch into a non-real time mode. And in that mode, like one of the most important things that they're doing is they're gathering evidence. They're documenting what happened so that downstream in the criminal justice system and as they're investigating that crime and et cetera, all the right things happen. The problem is as follows. Nobody signs up for the job because they love doing all that paperwork that's invariably required. And even if you watch shows like I mentioned earlier, like The Rookie or whatever, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, any of these shows are basically going to make fun of the paperwork burden that officers have. And look, it takes them, one, they don't love it. Number two, they're generally, not great at it. You don't sign up to be a police officer because you're English literature was your favorite, kind of college course. And it also means that these officers are not out in our communities making them safer for every hour that they're, doing this. So we had sort of this idea many years ago, because we've been in the body worn camera business for a long time of like, hey, if we're recording everything that's going on in that incident, could we actually use AI to create an incident report? Now, we sort of planted the flag at a user conference of ours like 7.5 years ago, not being sure at what point the AI would catch up in a way that allows us to do that. And of course, as LLMs really got really good over the last year to 18 months, this kind of idea became possible. And so in a nutshell, what we end up doing is, everything's happening on our body-worn camera. The moment that you are done with that incident, so to speak, you hit stop on that camera. We upload the audio to the cloud, and then sort of the AI kind of process takes over. And by the time you sit back down in your car, you can open up your laptop in your car. You can do this on a mobile device. We have what is called a first draft. Well, we don't call it that, but it's a first draft of the police report. We intentionally call it DraftOne though, because look, we are very upfront that like you as a human need to be in the loop and need to make whatever corrections to that thing because we just know that AI is not perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we call it co-pilot and not autopilot or main pilot, right? So yeah, perfect. I love the name DraftOne.
Yeah, that's right. And I also just love the kind of co-pilot notion as well, which is at the end of the day, like human is always sort of in the loop at the forefront of the decision. It's just we are, internally we kind of have this catchphrase of, we want to give our superheroes superpowers.
Yeah, I mean, as I was listening to you talk, a couple of things popped into my mind. First of all, I'm never going to watch like police dramas again the same way. I'll be looking for like certain things now. So thanks for that. And then also just the fact of being able to articulate, like having police officers on the street instead of doing paperwork, like just very simply is super impactful, to our communities. So yeah, thanks for the great work that you're all doing. I think you kind of talked a little bit, around this, but if you were to identify like some key trends right now that you're seeing in this industry, like in the last 12 months, what are a couple of those trends that stand out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, first and foremost, is going to be AI. So, we live in a world, and look, like I'm sure part of this is we're in the middle of what may end up being a hype cycle, but I'm not sure that like it really is going to be a hype cycle like we've seen, in other technology kind of shifts over the years. Like there is so much that is happening so fast in AI land right now that like we are just unabashed optimists at Axon about how the way that this is going to transform public safety and just the way that like we, the technology that we, give our local governments. And I guess the other thing that's I think worth pointing out is that uh, these state and local governments and public safety entities, whatever, the technology that they tend to have is often several generations behind what we have in our consumer lives, right? So like the opportunity here is to make a really big difference in the lives of these people that are basically putting their lives at risk on our behalf. And so that's just one of the I think exciting things about working in this particular sector. Beyond sort of the obvious things about AI, I would say the next one is you think about just mobility in general, and in particular, what our public safety partners might call drones as a first responder. So if you flash, you flash your brain forward, 20 years, and turns out that most 911 calls are not the thing that police dramas are made of. They are important, but they're not necessarily super urgent, and they're not necessarily life and death. And so for those ones, increasingly what we're seeing is, well, hey, and as part of that same picture, a lot of our cities are actually quite understaffed when it comes to police officers. And so one of the technologies that's shaping up this space is like, can you use drones as a first responder? So today, what that looks like is, can I send a drone from some fixed point in my city to just go check out and see what's going on? So a lot of 911 calls are things like automated burglary alarms from businesses. And look, you don't necessarily need to send a human first to see what's going on. Vast majority of those are false positives. So that's a great example of where, as we solve some of the regulatory challenges around that, there's a technology that's like emerging that like is going to be pretty powerful.
And that can get there much more faster than a human being on a car stuck in traffic, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're just sort of like, this is like an early thing where, again, 20 years from now, it probably won't just be these tiny aerial drones, but there might be other things with more capabilities. Imagine a world in which, someone's undergoing cardiac arrest and you need to get an AED to some point in the city as quickly as possible. Well, you don't want that stuck in traffic. And so if a drone could drop off sort of the life-saving equipment in 60 seconds instead of 20 minutes from a officer in a car, like that's a pretty big win for society. And then the other thing, another one that I would call out that's maybe kind of in the similar vein of trends that like we think could have a big impact and that we're seeing is a lot of companies, not Axon in particular, but are developing humanoid robots, right? And today these things are sort of slow and clunky, and honestly, they're sufficiently big that they're honestly dangerous to have in anything that is not a totally enclosed environment. But again, if you look at where AI was 5 years ago, and you imagine that, like, just play the clock even 5 years forward, I think these humanoid robots are going to have a transformative effect on public safety. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we think about the potential impact that these can have. We're generally excited.
I love the imaginative uh, area that we're starting to explore here in our conversation. Bryan, I do want to take a pause here and talk about something else that is really our job number one personally, and I'm sure it's very important for Axon as well, which is security. Can you tell us a bit more about how security plays a role in your products and in your industry?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna answer that question in a couple of different ways. Um, The second way I'll answer it is probably what most of the audience will like traditionally think of security, and it is an important one. I'm going to maybe call this first one safety, right? Because I think particularly in the space of police and state and local governments, as you start to talk about things like AI, drones, humanoid robots, like it's very easy to conjure up a dystopian future that none of us want to live in. So Axon, as a technology company, we are emphatically and have deep conviction around what we call like responsible innovation, right? So how do you use these technologies in a way that is truly a positive for society and our communities? Um, and look, we operate in a space where there's no easy answers. The right answer, like there will be voices in society that sort of have a knee-jerk reaction to any of these technologies and just say, hey, like don't use them. And we sort of take a different approach to say, well, no, let's figure out a way to do this in a responsible way. We're very proud of an ethics and advisory board that we have that represents voices from our communities, that helps us navigate some of these things from many diverse lenses, and has been like super influential on development of products like DraftOne that uses AI to do something that's like kind of important, but it's kind of a big deal if you get it wrong. Now, so that's the safety side. Let's get more deeply into security. So we operate what we think is the world's largest repository of digital evidence, and you can imagine that there are all sorts of bad actors that potentially would love to either get a hold of that evidence or tamper with it or whatever. So for us and our customers, security is paramount. And as we look at technology partners as well, any sort of like certification from a regulatory perspective that we need to get, we need to make sure that our partners have as well. And so Axon, in conjunction with I think our partners in Azure, has been able to navigate like all sorts of these regulatory frameworks that allow us to safely and securely operate our technology, in environments like the federal government or kind of international countries that have data sovereignty concerns, and together again with as a partner here, like we've been able to navigate those.
You've kind of touched on a couple of things already, but is there a milestone like in the industry that's been achieved because of AI that maybe you didn't think was possible a few years ago? I mean, I know you talked about like the police reports being written, et cetera, but is there anything else you would want to bring up to our audience?
Yeah, so I would say, look, the police reports is certainly top of mind there, simply for a couple of different reasons, right? Like one, just because of the sheer volume of time spent. And then I think the second is just how well AI is proving at like solving that particular problem. Now, look, doesn't mean it's easy, but like it is certainly like I think beat all of our expectations. I think another kind of just really cool thing that like I think we're proud of as a company is that there are a lot of different problems that you can apply AI to, and so the question is, it's just like as a product company, right? Like how do you decide like kind of where to spend your precious R&D focus versus not? And one of those areas, we kind of broadly like think about like, two classes of problems that you can go after. I think the first is one where, and this is like one that DraftOne fills in, is you take a job that like humans are spending a lot of time on, and you either get rid of it completely or you make it dramatically more efficient. The second is you sort of take a task that like it's potentially feasible for humans to do it, but honestly at scale, like it's just impossible. There's just too much of it to do. And so one of the things that's been in the public safety world for a long time are things like automated license plate readers. And certainly you could have a human on the side of a road or driving around a patrol car, manually looking up license plates, seeing if these are stolen vehicles or wanted felons or whatever. But it's just practically infeasible to do so. And with AI, what we were able to do is actually take what are effectively commodity cameras paired with state-of-the-art AI, and make a very like cost-effective way for agencies to do this. And so maybe that's the other thing that like in terms of your original question of like, well, what other milestones has AI really like achieved? I think it would boil down to beyond the massive time savings of DraftOne, you also see these things where things that were just historically like just massively cost prohibitive, but like have like strong societal value are now actually possible because agencies can do it in an affordable way.
No, that's wonderful. As you were saying all of this and also explaining the personas that you're targeting with these products, I was just thinking you're gaining advocates here, like these police officers that are doing either of these two tedious and time-consuming tasks that most of them are not in love with, are now going to become advocates for Axon and for your products and eager to see what else you come up with, which leads me to my next question, which is, let's talk about stuff that you haven't achieved yet, but you're really excited to solve for in the immediate or not so immediate future. Because I'm sure you, with your role, you have a bunch of things in mind, Bryan.
Yeah, for sure. I love this question. So, as a company, we have publicly declared what our moonshot is, and for us, it is reducing the number of deaths that happen between police in our communities, fatal police fatalities, by 50% over the next 10 years, right? And so that is a bold and audacious thing. But we look at just the way that like our communities interact with public safety and say, hey, look, there is a lot that we can do there on this goal to achieve this reduction in fatalities. And at the heart of that is, really is this our belief that, look, as a society, we can choose to solve that in a lot of different ways. Some of them may be policy oriented. Some of those, could be other things. For us, we're a technology company, so we think about it through the lens of technology. In our case, every time an officer is in a situation where they feel that their basically best option and their only option is reaching for a lethal tool, aka a gun, that's sad, right? So we want to create technology that does a few different things. One is, can we create technology that de-escalates a situation well before it kind of comes to this split-second decision of, am I reaching for a gun or a different tool on my belt? All the way up into, can we provide a set of tools on their belt, such as the taser, that instead of having this decision of like, hey, do I potentially use a lethal force option, I can actually 100% rely on this other thing so that I don't feel compelled to like use a firearm. Yeah, and kind of in this vein, and look, I want to go on the record and saying like I have never done this job. I spent a lot of time doing voice of customer, right? But like I've never been a police officer. I've never had to put my life at risk to like protect other people like this. So I have a great deal of empathy. But I just say that because I'm just speaking as a secondhand observer here. But to kind of maybe put you in the right mindset here of how this other technology we've been talking about, like drones and robotics, comes into play. If as a person, like I need to go through a door and I don't know what's on the other side of that door, but it might be deadly, it might put my life at risk. Uh, you better believe that I would probably have a gun in my hand. And if instead I could send an autonomous drone in through that door just to see what's going on the other side, that's great news because like I no longer need to sort of go through that door with my gun in hand because I already know what's on the other side of that door. So for us, that is sort of the encapsulation of our moonshot and what we have left to achieve. We stated this like I think 2 years ago, so we've got like 8 years left on the clock, and a lot of kind of good things underway to try to achieve that.
So incredible, literally life-saving, what your technology is doing. So first of all, just such great information today. And before we do let you go today, what would be some advice that you might give to, any of your peers that sees the potential, maybe has an idea in this sector and just really wants to innovate?
Okay, I love this question. Really, let me give a couple of reasons why. I think the first is what we touched on earlier in the interview here, which is this is an area where as people they are dramatically underserved by technology, right? And it's like y'all work for a tech company, I work for a tech company. We are fortunate to come into work, and at work we have tools that are modern and productive, and in some ways like at the forefront of kind of what's going on with AI, for example. These folks have that in their consumer lives, and then they go to work, right? And they're using tools that maybe sometimes are older than than all of us, or they're on paper, right? And so I think uh, that's reason number one why I think there's a lot of opportunity kind of in a space like this. And for someone that like views themselves as a technologist, where you can take patterns that you've had in other industries or other parts of your life and actually apply them quite readily here and make a big difference. Um, Now, the other thing is that like, so once upon a time, I used to work on a streaming video service called Prime Video, and as a product person and as an engineering person on a product like that, it's like it's easy to sort of get some intuition around like what the Xbox app should do because I go home and just use that Xbox app every Friday night as I watch a movie or whatever. These are product problems that like you just like I said, like no one technologists generally don't have a public safety background. And so the biggest advice that I can give someone wanting to make a difference in this space is you got to just really go spend time with the people that you're trying to help and really kind of just inhabit the problems that they are facing day to day. So, like personally, I've been on a lot of ride-alongs. I visit police agencies. And of course, you both get some good stories out of that are fun to tell at parties, and you certainly have some scary moments. But their work life is so different than ours that the way that you will make a difference is not by thinking that you're like so smart that you can just come up with a great idea. It's really just sitting with them, listening, observing, learning, and then sort of taking what you know from technology elsewhere and bringing it to life in kind of this domain.
Yeah, I think the old adage of walk a mile in someone's shoes, exactly what you're saying. So, Bryan, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and advice today with us. We are very thankful to have had you here, and we look forward to seeing, the future of what Axon brings.
All right. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure working with you too.
And with that, I just ask our audience to stay tuned for our post game show.
That's right, Helane. We are lucky to have two awesome guests for our post-game show. We have Molly Pfister. She is a partner marketing lead in our industry team. If you watch our previous episodes, you've met a bunch of them, and Molly is in charge of leading the SLG front for us. And we also have David Leopold, who is a partner development manager who works with Axon and many other of our partners here at the Microsoft Americas subsidiary. Molly and David, welcome to No Slides Attached.
Oh,
Hi,
thank
thanks for
you.
having us. Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. So let's get started. So, what did you think of the conversation with Axon?
I'll kick off. It was what a presentation, and fantastic to hear from Bryan around not only the what, but a little bit of the how, right? On how Axon has brought some of these innovations forward, leveraging the technology from Microsoft and others. I think for me, I saw three main things that I wanted to call attention to that I think is helpful for any partner looking to innovate within their industry and certainly with Microsoft. I think what I really enjoyed was his discussion of Axon keeping an eye on the long distance trends and how they saw AI coming, looked at it ahead, and wondered and were curious about what it could mean for their products and the innovation that they can deliver to their customers overall. So for any partner, I think it's a question of how can you keep your eye on these trends? How are you doing it today? And bringing them into your visioning, bringing them into your product roadmaps and your customer conversations and go to market. Many partners do this through Microsoft events such as Ignite, through listening to podcasts just like this one, through visiting our innovation hubs and other places. Keeping fresh to the horizon, I think, is an important message here, and landing that very concretely into use case and into that user perspective. The second thing that I'll call out, I think, is that Axon has found a way through this approach and certainly through their products like DraftOne to innovate beyond their current stance as a leader within public safety and justice. They're already well penetrated into the market. They already have very well used, well-liked products already. And the question is, where does growth continue from there? And I think there's a great lesson here on really putting your putting your mind in the mind of the customer, being curious around that user perspective, and thinking through the way that technology can help deliver on some of the innovations that people may be delivering already naturally around the products. How do you bring that closer in and do it in a way, as Axon has done, that is not distracting, but in fact doubles down on the mission of public safety that their customers have? And I think that's a key lesson that's a strong piece here. And then finally, I think what's so oftentimes government can get a bad rap on the innovation side, late to adopt, late to acquire, late to innovate. And this is a use case that is directly in the heart of some of what people see as the core services government delivers. And this is a way to innovate around that within this sector. So I think messages to partners are around that innovation happens everywhere, sometimes in unlikely places, and are certainly relevant for the industry that you may be delivering to today.
I love that he brought up the chain of evidence. That is actually one of the most critical factors in both public safety and justice and the criminal justice system that is burdensome, overlooked, a challenge, and knowing that they have the largest repository of data of evidence and just the safety, the security, the integrity of that data and that chain of data is so important and really upholds kind of our main societal values, whether or not you're on whatever side of the law, prosecution, or you're a defendant or something. We all want to have fair and equitable trials. And so seeing AI play an important role in that is just really awesome.
Well, I think both of you could have a career in sports broadcasting, because we just did that interview and you had your talking points pretty solid. You didn't know what Bryan was going to say. You had it pretty structured. And I want to go back to you, David. Your first observation was a compliment to how Axon really is staying on trend. But since you work with many partners and have so much experience in this industry, could you tell us what those trends are that you observe that are so relevant in this era of AI?
Absolutely. I think at its core, AI is a capability, right? This is a tool, and it's only, in my view, it's made relevant when it lands in mission. And this is oftentimes the word mission is sometimes pronounced use case, sometimes it's pronounced product case, all these other things. But at its core, governments, in many ways, and in its most simplistic way, are there to serve the communities that support them. Right. And it's through the services that they deliver, it's through the policies that they enact, it's through all of these other pieces. So I see innovation happening in government really in two main areas, right? One of them is that direct engagement with residents, with communities, with those that they're serving. And then the second really is, I think, within governments, government employees, and how can they do more with less, face some of the challenges around the cycles of budgets, of elections, of reductions in workforce that are common out there. How can technology play a role to make government employees be able to do more around that mission space, but really returns to job number one, which is serving the residents and communities that are supporting the governments overall. And Molly, I'm really curious of your view on this. I know you see so many of the use cases that are coming from partners in some of these other areas, and sort of how does that line up, or what do you think?
Yeah, no, that was great. You kind of teed me up for one of the big things that I want to talk about, which is government as an industry is really complex. It's at Microsoft, it's looked up as 4 different subverticals: public safety and justice, infrastructure, public finance, and public health and human services. But when it comes to AI implementation, we can kind of simplify it as in 2 key ways. The use cases fall into improving employee operational efficiency and enhancing citizen services and experiences. So diving into how generative AI is driving employee and operational efficiency, this is all about helping government employees work smarter, not harder. Think about automating repetitive tasks like draft reporting with DraftOne, responding to internal inquiries, or even analyzing large data sets for patterns and insights. So for example, a city might use AI to quickly draft summaries of community feedback from a public meeting, which free up staff to focus on implementing solutions. Or a public health department might streamline its workflows by using AI to generate summaries from massive amounts of case data. The goal here is to reduce the time that employees spend on tedious tasks so they can concentrate on higher value work, whether that's problem solving, innovating, or serving citizens more effectively. And then switching gears to the citizen experience side of things. This is really where generative AI shines in creating more personalized and responsive interactions between governments and their communities. So imagine a virtual assistant on a city website where that website uses generative AI to answer questions in a conversational and intuitive way. Anything from where is my trash pickup to how do I apply for a small business grant? These tools make accessing services easier and faster for residents, which helps build trust and satisfaction in their governments. Another example might be using AI to translate government documents into multiple languages instantly, ensuring that important information reaches everyone in the community, regardless of their native language. So what's exciting is how these two use cases work together to create a better overall system. When employees are more efficient and have the tools to collaborate effectively, they can better support the services that directly impact citizens. And when citizens feel heard and cared through personalized, responsive, AI-driven experiences, the trust and engagement between governments and their communities only grows stronger. So in the end, AI, it's just not about having some cool new technology. It's really about transforming how governments serve their employees and their communities, which makes it easier for everyone to connect, to collaborate, and to thrive.
Yeah, Molly, having been a small business owner, just the example you gave of, being able to get onto your local city website and understand how to, create a business license and to do all those steps, and having that assistance would have been huge, when I had started my business. So that's super exciting for all those new businesses that are about to start up. And like you said, that relationship with your local government.
Yeah. And it's as complicated as government is, it's so easy for our partners to think about it in two ways. Are we going to help the employees and the operations and make that better? Or are we going to make the experiences better for citizens? Both are great. We need both. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. So before we let you go, I'm going to throw this out to both of you. For the partners that are listening, what advice do you have for them to achieve more in this space of state and local government?
All right, I'll kick it off. So we are right on the cusp, and by the time that this is played, the announcement of Microsoft 365 Copilot availability for Government Community Cloud, or GCC, will be announced. This is huge. This has been years in the making. So huge, huge, huge. Partners, get engaged. For partners, key things to focus on. I won't go into detail because I know we're short on time, but understand the security and compliance requirements. GCC environment is designed to meet those stringent government requirements. Copilot's no exception. Make yourself familiar. Leverage training resources. Microsoft's got a wealth of training materials and resources to help you and your customers get up to speed with Copilot. Take advantage of them. Promote user adoption. Encourage your customers to start building their own AI skills and strategies, but also look internally and make sure that that culture and that awareness you're embracing. Are you using AI? Are you using Copilot? Is your leadership? Are your teams? Are your sellers? Make sure that adoption is advocated and widespread across the board. And then lastly, stay updated. We've got some links that we're going to put in the podcast description, all about the rollout and resources to help you get up to speed. So take a look at those, keep updated. This is going to be a really exciting time for government with AI.
That's awesome. That's spot on, Molly. The only thing I would add is just as you're talking with customers, it's important to remember some basics, right? You need to meet them where they are. And in some cases, customers may still be on-prem. They may be interested in AI, but there may be a way, some distance for them to make the updates available and other things underway. So I guess my recommendation to partners is to work with Microsoft to talk with your customers so that we can help to tell that cloud journey story. It's important to be in the cloud first to get the full benefit of these types of solutions. It's important for your data to be secure first before you start rollouts and other things along those lines. So we're here to help tell that story. But at the end of the day, AI and the inherent curiosity I think we all have around it is a phenomenal conversation starter. And whether or not your next steps begin with AI or end with AI, either way, I think that's an area that you can work with Microsoft, and it's an area that benefits the customer. And it's a great way to build momentum around a shared conversation.
Well, I think the advice you gave is spot on. We've heard very similar advice, from our other stakeholders that have joined us. So we really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us on our post game show, and really appreciate the insight that you brought to our partners. Fede, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude because over the past 7 episodes, we've covered 7 very different industries. We've seen really common trends across what are they doing in security, what has been achieved that hasn't before, and also what they expect from the future that hasn't been solved yet, but it's really, really exciting. So if you've missed on any of those episodes, this is a great moment to go back and check them out. And we are preparing a new way for you to be able to enjoy them. So stay tuned for that. And also really tell us what you think. We're eager to see where do we take this podcast next. By joining our LinkedIn community, the America's Partner community, you can tell us what you think, any ideas that you have for this podcast. We read every single comment that you put there, or just comment on our YouTube channel as well. We're really excited about where we're going next with this podcast. We hope today's conversations have ignited fresh perspectives and inspired you to take new opportunities in this changing landscape of AI.
Stay tuned for more insights and stories on No Slides Attached. Be sure to listen in and follow us at noslidesAttached.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.